Welcome back to Roughin' It.
From Montana, we took the highway going south. Cross into Wyoming from the north and you immediately know it. The rivers give way to one of the greatest natural wonders in the world, and for America, its oldest national park, Yellowstone. With 5 entrances and an area larger than Rhode Island, you'll want to decide on where to start. Yellowstone is pretty big. The park spreads out into Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho, covering 3,500 square miles. It varies as much in terrain as it does in wildlife, and there's so much to see that figuring out your entry point will impact your experience. Coming from the north, the Roosevelt Arch was our starting point. The inscription says it all: for the benefit and enjoyment of the people. And that is just what this place is for. Everyone. The diverse wildlife and awe-inspiring sights do not care what passport you carry when you enter here. And by that same token, we are all charged with protecting and respecting it. Even during the era of aggressive expansion, this place drove the U.S. federal government to a startling stop. When explorers reached Yellowstone, it was decided it was too precious to develop.
And so, in 1872, President and Civil War General Ulysses S. Grant signed it into a protected territory before national parks had even been started.
Thus it became the first national park of the United States. I doubt there's a person in existence who hasn't been wonderstruck by at least one thing, if not everything, in Yellowstone. The area features dramatic canyons, alpine rivers, wooded forests, thermal pools, and shooting geysers, including its most famous, Old Faithful, which erupts every 40 to 125 minutes. It's also home to hundreds of animal species, including bears, wolves, bison, elk, and antelope, and thousands of specimens of plants. Under that notion of protection, pets are prohibited in much of the park, both for the benefit of the area and for the safety of the pet.
And it's not just the wild animals. There's thermal vents and plummeting canyons and all sorts of hazards that can be very dangerous to your pets. So, you do want to respect those very strict restrictions that the park rangers have.
While they are allowed, there are strict guidelines to follow. There aren't too many kenneling options, nor is tethering a pet outside allowed.
The park rangers might ask to see your vaccination papers for your pet, so make sure you bring that along as well.
As a solo traveler with few options, the Forest Service recommends to park in the shade with adequate ventilation in the vehicle at the beginning or end of the day in order to see some of it. There's a link to the video on guidelines in the notes. With or without a dog, Yellowstone is a joyful experience.
Look at that beautiful lake. Oh my knives.
The Yellowstone Lake sits over the mouth of the largest supervolcano on the entire continent. If it ever did erupt, which is not likely anytime soon, the entire continent would be covered with magma and ash. It's been said that the supervolcano in Yellowstone could power the planet twice over, and in fact, NASA has made theoretical plans to try to harness that geothermal energy for just such a purpose. For now, the park is to remain pristine and untouched. Iceland has got it right. Roughly 90% of the homes there are heated by geothermal energy and 25% are electrically powered by it. Should we learn to mitigate the risks to the preservation of the environment, the United States might have the answer to renewable energy right under your feet. Then again, To destroy this amazing place would be an incomparable crime. And speaking of power, Yellowstone is a great place to unplug. With little to no cell phone service, don't count too heavily on the GPS of your phone or any of the technology it provides. We were okay with it. Skylar. 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 The geothermals are astonishing, and there are an estimated 10,000 of them. Hot springs, mud pots, and fumaroles or steam vents riddle the land. Don't mess with them, as many the misguided visitor have lost their lives here. Because of their lethality, it is illegal to swim in any of the hot springs in Yellowstone. However, you can legally take a dip in places with charming names like the Boiling River near Mammoth or Firehole River. These places are not free of hazards, though, and you should obey all rules and restrictions. Norris Geyser Basin is the hottest in the park. They should have named it Morris instead of Norris. Then again, it was named after a man who ultimately saved Yellowstone from manifest destiny decimation. The geothermals get their coloration from both species of bacteria that thrive in their environment and various mineral deposits. Prehistoric human artifacts indicate that early people used the hot water from the geothermals to bathe and cook. American Indian populations cited the place where spirits fought each other, hence the steam, noise, and heat. The famed fur trapper Jim Bridger called it the place where hell bubbled up. However you want to interpret Yellowstone, there are numerous recreational opportunities, including hiking, camping, boating, fishing, and sightseeing. Paved roads provide close access to the major geothermal areas, as well as some of the lakes and waterfalls. I could stand here expounding on the wonder that is Yellowstone all day, or you can go and see it. As if the amazement couldn't get any more intense, travel south and enter the Grand Tetons. The National Park Service calls them the Mountains of Imagination. Hike the over 200 miles of trails, or float along the Snake River, or sit and take in the scenery. The renowned trout fishing is a huge draw for fishing enthusiasts, and the dogs don't mind the spoils.
Now that is one happy dog.
For the mountaineer, these peaks are hugely challenging ascents, and not to be attempted by the amateur. At a nearly 14,000-foot vertical climb, many have lost their lives in the pursuit of the top. As for climbing, Skylar and I never got past the gawking phase. It is a most fascinating place because the region is like a time capsule. With an almost pristine ecosystem, the same species of flora and fauna that have existed since prehistoric times can still be found here. Even the rocks are some of the most ancient in all of North America. The variance in elevation allows for a smorgasbord of life. And yet, formed a mere 6 to 9 million years ago, it's the youngest range in the Rockies. There are links to the Grand Teton app as well as a Yellowstone app in the notes. There are plenty of places to stay, with more than 1,000 drive-in campsites and a backcountry open to those who intend to go farther afield. As we humans have moved around the globe, much like with Native American populations, diseases have been introduced to the flora as well. The white pine, a crucial keystone to life support in the region, has been under threat.
Get that Merlin Bird ID app ready because there are more than 300 species of birds here.
From North America's largest waterfowl, the trumpeter swan, the very inspiration for E.B. White's The Trumpet of the Swan, to its smallest hummingbird, the calliope.
For the more urbane, Coulter Bay offers a visitor center with a shop, laundry facilities, accommodations, and arguably the prettiest view of all the Tetons. Say what you will about America, her politics, her history, her sovereignty, but there is no denying her beauty and her intrigue.
Take in the scenery. Find out what happens in next episode.